everyone, Phoenix Knight here. Welcome to the channel, and welcome to Mystical Munchies featuring the Dungeons & Dragons flavors of the Multiverse cookbook. The Rothy steak last week was really good. I was really happy with how it turned out, aside from filling my apartment with smoke, but sometimes that's just how it goes when you cook. This week, we're on to the dessert, fig cakes. First up, let's tell the story. Fig cakes are an easily preserved pouched snack for explorers with a sweet tooth. A perfect fig cake is as much about the fig as it is about the lightly toasted and ground almonds that form this fruity confection's chewy base. While honeyed fig tarts were extremely popular in Kalimshan on the planet Toril, it is believed that this unique dessert originally hailed from the desolate wastes of the Shadowfell. Developed by the elves native to the Plane of Shadow called the Shadarkai, these treats are sweet enough to be at home even in the dreamy Feywild. In addition to the sesame seeds and anise seeds, a strong brandy is often infused into the mix to both sweeten and fortify these pressed cakes. While fig cakes do not come cheap, they are, nonetheless, a proud and delicious reminder of the resourcefulness of the Shadarkai. Hopefully we'll find out a little bit more about our resourcefulness, because the ingredients are waiting for us at the table, and so let's head in that direction. Yes, there is a little bit of a buzzing shot. That's coming from the water bubbler. Anyway, to make this recipe, we need a third of a cup. Actually, we need 3/4 of a cup of slivered almonds, lightly toasted. I'm not going to worry about toasting them, though. 8 ounces of dried figs. 1.5 teaspoons of finely grated lemon zest. I'm just going to use the zest from a lemon, and there's actually a little piece in here that I don't think is supposed to be part of that. Okay. Must have zested something a little bit when I was zesting the lemon earlier. 3/4 of a teaspoon each of ground cinnamon and ground anise. I'm just going to use the regular anise seeds. A small pinch of kosher salt. 3 tablespoons of brandy or cognac. I'm subbing in bourbon and it's non-alcoholic because I don't drink. And 1/3 of a cup of sesame seeds. Let's move into the kitchen and start putting this recipe together. The first few steps all revolve around the food processor, which I've got right here in shot. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to pulse the almonds until they're fine but not pasty, which should take about 5 2-second pulses. So we'll get out the almonds here. We'll get 3/4 of a cup of these. 1. And 3. Okay. I'll put those back up. Then we'll put the lid back on. There we go. And now we're going to pulse this until, again, fine but not pasty, about 5 2-second pulses. Here's my 5-second warning before I start pulsing the food processor. It's going to be fairly loud. Okay. Those all look good there. Fine but not pasty, so there are 5 2-second pulses. Which means we can get that into our medium bowl that I've got off shot. There we go. Right, over on this side. Let me get the blade out for a second so I can get the almonds in there. Okay. Now we'll bring the bowl to the food processor and the blade back in shot. Before I add everything else, I'm going to do a quick check just to make sure I've got everything working correctly on the food processor. So Here's another 5-second warning before I do a very quick pulse just to make sure everything's working. Okay. I just wanted to make sure that that was still working, as there are safety measures on this food processor. For instance, since I took the lid off, now when I try to activate it, now nothing happens. So that's a way to make sure I can't reach my hand in there and chop my hand to pieces on the blade, because that would be kind of bad. Anyway, now we're going to take most of the rest of the ingredients. We'll start off with the figs. Dump those right in. The lemon zest, which I've got right here. The spices. Got our ground cinnamon right here. 1, 2, and 3. The anise seed, which of course I will have to open. I'll have to open since I just bought it. And almost forgot to pay for it when I was paying for everything else at the grocery store. Noticed it when I was walking out, as I tucked it into a corner of the cart where I almost couldn't see it. And I was like, oh, I forgot I had this. I better go back and pay for it. 3/4 of a teaspoon of this as well. Okay. That can go back up as well. Our kosher salt, which I've got right here. See if I can get this. Easy does it. There's our pinch of salt. And the bourbon standing in for brandy. Looking for a perforation or something I can tear with this, and I think I just found it. Problem is, it looks like I have to come up from the bottom to tear this open. You know what? I've got a corkscrew. I've got a waiter's corkscrew in here. That'll make opening this a whole lot easier. There we are. Okay. And it's not hopefully it's not a cork bottle, but it sure looks like it is. How in the world does this thing open up? It doesn't just lift, apparently it just lifts off. There we go. Okay. We need 3 tablespoons of this. I've got my 1.5 tablespoons measuring spoon right here. So I can go 1 and 2. The 1.5 tablespoon measuring cup can go into the dishes. The non-alcoholic bourbon can go back into the fridge. I actually need it for a recipe for next week's episode of Mystical Munchies, but I'm getting ahead of myself. I didn't realize I needed it for this week until I looked at the recipe. I was like, oh, good thing I bought this thinking about next week, because I actually needed it this week too. That's everything in there. So now we want to process until very finely chopped and well blended, which should take about 20 seconds. And I'll want to stop and scrape down the sides as I need to. So let's lock the lid back in place. I've got my scraper right here, and another 5-second warning before I turn the food processor back on. I was about to call it a blender. I mean, it technically is, but whoa! Holy cow! Jeez, might not be liking the figs. And it doesn't look like I need to scrape down the sides too much, but yeah, there is something going on there. Okay. Kicked out a bit more liquid than I was expecting it to. Actually, I wasn't expecting it to be kicking out liquid at all, to be honest. But it's not getting to that place where I want it to be well blended. I'll take a quick look here. Scrape it down just a little bit. I'll bring the spoon rest over to this side so I can rest the scraper on it. Okay, that's probably... Honestly, that seems like it's going to be about as good as I can get it. Let me see if I can do a little bit more with this in terms of scraping it down. Actually, everything seems to be blended pretty well in there, and I think I need to add... Let's go to the next step now that we've got that blended. Now we want to add the ground almonds and pulse several times to incorporate them, which should be about 4 2-second pulses. So now we'll add in the almonds. Put the lid back on. And then it's set out 4 2-second pulses. Okay. We'll give it a little bit of a scrape, and then I might give it a couple more pulses. Just to make sure I get everything in there. Or maybe as much as I can anyway. There we go. Okay, I think that looks good there. So now what we want to do is now we're going to grab a pie plate out, and I need to move the camera so I can get at my pie plates. Nothing else in there. Whoop. Jarred the tripod. Let me get that out of the way so I can get the pie plate out. So now we want to take the sesame seeds and mix them and place them in a wide, shallow bowl. This will do nicely for that purpose. So let me get my sesame seeds out, which is a good thing. I found them in a much bigger quantity than this, which I used the last time I needed sesame seeds. And I've got my 1/3 of a cup measuring cup right here. So we'll pour all of those out. That can hit the bin. There we go. Wasn't able to get a grip on the bigger container of sesame seeds for a second. I'll tip the camera down just so you can see what we're going to be doing here. while I'm cussing and swearing with opening the sesame seeds. Just out of shot. There we go. Got them. I was trying to get the seal off is what I was doing this time. Okay. So now we'll pour out more of the sesame seeds. Okay. Then I'll pour those out. The sesame seeds can go up as well. Then I'll work on spreading these out to give myself a little bit more coverage. And then we'll pause, and then we'll turn the camera off for a second so I can get ready for the next step. There was one other step I forgot as I was getting the sesame seeds ready. I had to scrape the fig mixture out of the food processor back into the medium bowl I used to store the almonds earlier, presumably to make this next step easier. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take quarter-cup portions and mix them and pour them and basically just scrape them into balls. I'm not going to do this with every single portion as usual. I'm going to do the first one as a demonstration. Then we're going to press that down. We want this to be about 3 inches long, 2 inches wide, and about ½ inch thick. I'm not going to grab a tape measure and measure every one of these, but that's kind of the general idea we have here. I do want to get... I've got that one scraped down, but I need something to put... I'm probably going to need a couple somethings to put these on. So I'm going to grab a couple of plates to be able to store these on. Okay, so now we want to place them in the sesame seeds and press gently to help adhere it. So we're going to put this in the sesame seeds, pressing gently. And I only want the one side there, okay? We can bring that over to one of the plates. And then as I mentioned, I'm not going to do every one of these on camera. I just wanted to do the first one as a demonstration. So I'm going to do the rest of these. Then we're going to place them with sesame side up on the plate. We'll let them rest to firm up and dry out for about an hour before serving. We'll come back after that hour's elapsed. Here's how the fig cakes look now that they're all done. Admittedly, I've never had figs before. I've had fig Newtons back when I was younger, but it's certainly not recently. Anyway, let's move a plate of these over to my desk for the taste test. I've got some of the fig cakes over here, so we're going to give them a taste and see what I think. It's actually a fairly simple recipe to put together, but the big thing about it is it just takes time to let everything set. So, let's give this a taste and see what I think. In case you were wondering what I was picking out of my mouth there, it seemed like there was a pit or something in one of the figs that I found that wasn't chewing properly, so I just had to get that out. But actually, I'm pretty happy with how these turned out. There's a nice varied spice profile here that is actually really interesting and actually pretty good. Now, the 3 tablespoons of brandy, aka bourbon I used, got mixed in there. I don't really taste that too much in there. But everything else came out very well. A little bit on the chewy side, so just be aware of that if you make this recipe yourself. But that's another episode of Mystical Munchies in the books. Next week, we will be on the drink, Erlenmeyer's Dragonfire Punch. Before that, we've got a busy slate of videos lined up this weekend. Later this afternoon, we're going to be at Olympic Stadium in Montreal, Quebec, Canada for Game 5 of the National League Championship Series in 1985 in-season ticket baseball between the Montreal Expos and the Houston Astros. The Expos lead that series 3-1. They are looking to close it out in Game 5 today. Mike Scott will be on the hill for the Astros, and Bill Gullickson will be starting for the Expos. Tomorrow we'll be playing game number 5 on my War Room 10-game list this year, as we play Undaunted 2200 Callisto from Osprey Games. Wednesday, we're doing an RPG adventure as we play Star Wars Force and Destiny. Thank you for watching the video. Please give the video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Be sure to turn on notifications so you get my content. Be well, stay safe, take care of yourselves and your loved ones, and I'll be back with more videos in the future. Until then, take care everyone.